Now, don't stop me if you've experienced this one before. You develop something of a big brain. You solve all your problems with relative ease. Most men want to be you. Others fear you. Women will still treat you the same. Introducing Oxygen Not Included, a micromanagement, survival, base building game. Why yes, this was an early access. How did you know? You will have a very comfy time micromanaging your duplicate survival as they eat, sleep, dig, build, and piss in your water supply, until eventually it all comes crashing down when you mismanage all your resources. Now, I'm not one to brag, but I have played the beginning of a handful of games. I have a solid, but simple, understanding of the game. I've never beaten the game, so let me tell you of my time when I decided to bump up the difficulty and how I learned that I'm not as smart as I thought I was. So the general gameplay goes like this. You select your asteroid, you select your starting duplicates, rolling their starting stats and traits. I tend to start with a builder, digger, and researcher, and then you spawn in. Now you don't directly control your workers. Instead, you queue up orders, and from there, you build. The game is all about managing several aspects of your colony. For instance, the oxygen supply. Gases in this game mingle and move relative to their weight, so you must be sure to process and generate the gases you need in the places you want them. Germs are something else that propagate and multiply, so you need to keep your sanitation practices and facilities running well, and not piss in the water supply. The germ overlay is actually pretty cool to watch, to see the contaminated duplicates and how everything they touch starts to grow germs. Imagine if you were able to see this overlay in real life. I'm really liking my current colony. It's the best I've done yet, which is of course no surprise because I'm so big-brained. My duplicates have no stress. Electricity is flowing well with my two main circuits avoiding overloading, good disposal of polluted water, and most importantly, I have a surplus of food. I also finally removed the source of germs in my water. The media empire is running strong. Now, I know I can't stagnate. I can't rest on my laurels. Eventually I will run out of materials, so it's time to expand. And I have been very careful with expanding past the starting biome. Chlorine or hydrogen will end up gassing my colony if I mess up. So you also have to take note of the temperature as well, because while duplicates can take a beating and hold their breath, if it gets too cold or too hot, there could be trouble. I just wish instead of using metric temperature units, they would have used the superior imperial unit of measure. It would just be so much easier to read, so I know when things are getting a little too hot under the collar. As you can imagine, things could end up very badly for your colony if you mismanage. And it is at this point I begin to mismanage. So I see this pool of hydrogen in the salt geyser room, and I think to myself, well, my big brain knows that hydrogen rises, so I can open up the ceiling and the hydrogen will then be funneled into a hydrogen generator, and I can start a new circuit. I was getting pretty close to overloading my current too. And it worked. Hydrogen in, power out. But then I realized the big flaw in my plan. I would run out of hydrogen. I also built this tank, and I can't for the life of me remember why I decided to build this. Why did I build this tank? I don't have a stable source of hydrogen, nor did any of the biomes around me. So hydrogen power is out. But that does lead to something more reliable. I got a plan B, or rather, a plan P. Petroleum power. this'll be the first time I ever try to use this. I found a very accessible oil reservoir that I can build the oil well over. However, the oil reservoir is in a deathly hot biome. So what would the big-brained individual think to do? Well, you should clearly build an Atmos suit. That way your duplicates could come in and build the oil well safely. Is that what I did? No! I had what I thought was a bigger-brained idea. There's an ice biome right above the oil reservoir, so I would mine right under that biome and have the cold come in and mix with the hot, cooling it down enough for my duplicates to safely build the oil well without needing to invest in Atmos suits. And of course, this plan failed. Well, I always have a backup plan. I had this pool of polluted water right above the reservoir, and water cools hot stuff. So I cut into it, and I have it drain out. And of course, this plan works. I cooled the nearby area, I built the oil well, and I attached the piping and power to it. One small detail I did overlook though. Now the seasoned veterans of this game might have already noticed, but I fell for one of the classic blunders. The most famous is hoarding algae terrariums, but only slightly less well known is this. Never cool the oil reservoir by throwing polluted water down the mine. See, my biggest mistake was that I thought the oil well would funnel the crude oil through the pipe and into my refinery. So when it didn't do this, I got a little curious. Well, it turns out it doesn't pump out the crude oil through the pipes. Instead, it pumps in clean water, and the crude oil kind of just pools around the floor. You are intended to pump the oil separately and funnel it into the refinery. And since I have an overwhelming pool of polluted water getting in the way, and the temperature rising to dangerous levels again, that was a big mistake. My misuse of resources and time had one big consequence. You see, I spent so much time and effort trying to cool down my oil reservoir that, ironically enough, I should have spent all that time cooling down my colony. It turns out that these electrical appliances all give off heat, and the heat doesn't just go away. So my colony temperature was rising, and it is stressing my duplicates out. I mean, they're out there suffering in 47 Celsius. And if we know that 0 Celsius is freezing, and freezing's also 32 Fahrenheit, and 100 Celsius is boiling, and boiling is 212 Fahrenheit, so from that we know that 47 Celsius and Fahrenheit is around, I mean, it estimates to, it is just too hot. The heat also had a second side effect. You see, plants need a certain temperature climate in order to grow, and my farm put a lot of focus on meal lice, and those like a bit of a more burr temperature. So even after removing a few of them for wheezeworts, who literally eat the hot, and even giving them a dedicated fan bearer, they still do not grow. This leads to a famine for my duplicates. Speaking of duplicates, I might have picked up one more duplicate. This is literally right before I truly realized the state of things. I was thinking, I need an extra pair of hands around the place. Instead, I just ensured that all hands will be starving. It is at this point I truly realize that the writing's on the wall for me. While this situation might be salvageable, it isn't by me. There is no way I can get out of this situation. I'm crushed. This was the best start I ever had in this game, and I threw it all away being so tunnel visioned on building this tunnel. Normally this would be the time to cut my losses. The sun falls on the Media Empire, and I start a new colony where I hope I learned my lesson and I do better. But if I'm going down with a personal win. I'm too invested. I'm too proud. I need a win. I'm gonna complete at least one of two what I consider to be milestones in my progress. 1. create a great monument to measure just how well I've grown, and 2, dig straight up and reach the surface of the asteroid. And I want to see the vast expanse of space for the first time. My playthrough would have purpose. So now I have drive. I have a tangible goal. Even if my colony falls right after, if I can achieve one of these goals, I can walk away as the management master I know I am. Alright, so first things first. I still don't have the Great Monument unlocked yet, so I sent my researcher straight on that, and I had my best digger, nay, my best duplicant, Monkha, working on getting us right to the surface. Look at what he dug so far. I'm honestly surprised how far the surface seems to be. Oh look, the map is also giving me the Imperial units chart. Now these goals at the time seemed manageable, they seemed likely, and we had all systems go to make it happen. Unfortunately, one of my other duplicates, Devon, had other plans. See, he was for whatever reason becoming unreasonably stressed. And for Devon, he does a very particular thing when he gets 100% stressed. He will stress eat. See, I already have all my cooks working around the clock to try their best to hold us over, and to their credit, they're doing a damn good job. So my priority here is to reduce the stress on Devon. I even made him a little massage table. This is working. His stress is falling. I'm taking back the reins of control. But the fall of the media empire must continue. What I didn't see coming, our lead researcher worked so hard and neglected himself that he died of starvation. He didn't even finish researching the Great Monument yet. But the worst part is that the other duplicates get stressed when one of them dies. So I'm sure you can imagine how this one ends.
You know what? I'm getting a bit hungry.
Please! I beg you! No! No! God! No!
With mass starvation imminent, I'm running out of time, but I was able to get another duplicate the research skill. Thankfully, we were able to finish researching the Great Monument. I can still salvage this yet! The Great Monument will be built! Is what I would like to say. But it turns out the Great Monument needs plastic, and to create plastic you need petroleum, which you get from an oil refinery. After you feed the crude oil you get from the oil well that you operate over the oil reservoir. The Great Monument plan was doomed from the start. And I lost here as well. This leaves everything on Monkha's shoulders. His broad, capable shoulders. And he works hard. I shut down a lot of the chores and maintenance so that we can all focus on supporting Monkha. The starvation was finally starting to take control of my colony. More duplicates have fallen to it. But still he continued to dig. He continued to make progress. Monkha has a heart of gold. But the surface was still so far away. I chipped forward biome after biome, and there was still no light at the end of the tunnel. Inevitably, the stress got to him too. I mismanaged the oxygen generation. He would walk all the way to the dig site, but immediately he needed to retreat to catch his breath. He made no progress, and he too failed. I failed you, Monkha. You know, sometimes stories don't have that happy ending. I made too many mistakes. It feels like I was a frog in a pot. It was constantly getting closer to boiling, and I continued to make more mistakes instead of fixing the ones I had. It is heartbreaking. I'm devastated. Clearly, I'm not the strategic mastermind I thought I was. But this game is comfy. It's simple to get into, but the learning curve is quite good that it gives you enough challenge and allows you to learn. The game is actually quite forgiving when you make a mistake, but I was too comfy and on a quest to get oil. I had fun. A lot of fun. Would I recommend this game? I would. Will I pay closer attention to the temperature next time? I will. Will I try to be less small-brained? Oh, you betcha. This won't be the end. While I may be dumb and goofy today, I could be the mastermind I know I can be tomorrow. I will work on myself, keep on learning, and hey, maybe one day I will make the big brain plays that give me the W's. Thanks for watching my video. I appreciate it.